My name is Emma, and I am 16 years old. This is the story of how I lost everything and found everything again. I lived in a small village by the sea. My father was the lighthouse keeper. Every night, he climbed the tall lighthouse and lit the big lamp. The light helped ships find their way home safely through the dark ocean. My mother died when I was 10 years old. After that, it was just my father and me. We lived in a small white house next to the lighthouse. Life was simple but happy. My father was a quiet man, but he loved me very much. Every morning, he made breakfast for us. Every evening, we walked on the beach together and watched the sunset. Emma, always remember, he would say. Even in the darkest night, there is light. We must be that light for others. I didn't fully understand what he meant then. But soon, I would learn the deepest meaning of his words. One terrible night in October, the biggest storm in 50 years hit our village. The wind was so strong, it broke trees like toys. The rain fell like rivers from the sky. The ocean became angry and wild. My father had to go to the lighthouse. Ships needed the light to stay safe. Stay inside, Emma. Lock all the doors. I'll be back soon, he said. Please be careful, Papa, I begged him. He smiled and kissed my forehead. Don't worry. I've worked through hundreds of storms. I'll be fine. But he was wrong. That night, a huge wave hit the lighthouse. The old building, which had stood for over 100 years, couldn't survive. It fell into the angry ocean. My father was inside. I watched from our house, screaming and crying, but I could do nothing. The storm was too dangerous. Nobody could go out. By morning, the storm had stopped. The sun came out, beautiful and bright. But the lighthouse was gone. And so was my father. They found his body 3 days later, washed up on the beach. At 16 years old, I became an orphan. After my father's funeral, I had to face reality. I had no family. My mother's family lived in another country, and I had never met them. My father had no brothers or sisters. Worst of all, I had no money. My father had earned very little as a lighthouse keeper. We had always lived month to month, with barely enough to survive. The government took our house. It belonged to the lighthouse service, and now that my father was dead and the lighthouse was destroyed, I couldn't stay there. I had nowhere to go. Mrs. Henderson, who owned the village bakery, let me sleep in the small room above her shop. She was kind, but she was also old and poor. She couldn't take care of me forever. Emma dear, you can stay for 1 month. But after that, you'll need to find something permanent. I'm sorry, but I can barely afford to feed myself, she said sadly. I understand, Mrs. Henderson. Thank you for your kindness, I replied. I had to find work immediately. But what could a 16-year-old girl with no education and no skills do? I went to every shop, every farm, every house in the village, asking for work. I'm sorry, Emma. We have no work, they all said. Some people felt sorry for me. They gave me food or a few coins. But pity doesn't pay rent. Pity doesn't build a future. After 2 weeks of searching, I was desperate. I had $5 left. That was all I had in the world. One rainy afternoon, I sat on the beach near where the lighthouse used to stand. I cried and cried. I felt so alone, so lost, so hopeless. Papa, what should I do? You always knew what to do. But you're gone and I don't know how to survive alone, I whispered to the wind. Then I remembered something. Before the storm, my father had been teaching me about the lighthouse. He had taught me how the lamp worked, how to maintain it, how to signal ships. One day, Emma, you might become a lighthouse keeper too, he had said with pride. That memory gave me an idea. A crazy, impossible idea. But it was the only idea I had. The next morning, I walked 10 miles to the city. There, I found the harbor master's office. This was the place that controlled all the lighthouses along the coast. I walked in dirty and tired from my long walk. The secretary looked at me with suspicion. What do you want? She asked coldly. I need to speak with the harbor master, please, I said as confidently as I could. The harbor master is a very busy man. He doesn't see people without appointments, she said. Please, it's very important. My father was the lighthouse keeper at Sunset Point. He died in the storm. I have an important proposal about the lighthouse, I explained. The secretary's expression softened a little. Oh, you're Thomas's daughter. I heard about the tragedy. I'm very sorry. Wait here. She went into an office and came back a few minutes later. Mr. Peterson will see you. Mr. Peterson was a large man with a gray beard and kind eyes. He looked at me with concern. You're Thomas's daughter? Please sit down. I was very sad to hear about your father. He was an excellent lighthouse keeper. The best we ever had, he said gently. Thank you, sir, I said, my voice shaking. That's why I'm here. I want to rebuild the lighthouse. And I want to be the new lighthouse keeper. Mr. Peterson stared at me in shock. Then he laughed. Not a mean laugh, but a surprised laugh. My dear girl, that's impossible for many reasons. First, you're only 16. Second, you're a girl. We've never had a female lighthouse keeper. Third, rebuilding a lighthouse costs at least $50,000. Where would that money come from? He said. I know it sounds impossible. But please listen to me, I said urgently. My father taught me everything about lighthouse keeping. I know how to maintain the lamp, how to signal ships, how to read the weather. I'm young, but I'm strong and capable. As for being a girl, well, I can do the same work as any man. And about the money, I have a plan. What plan? Mr. Peterson asked, curious now. Ships have been crashing near our coast since the lighthouse fell. 3 ships in 1 month. That's dangerous and expensive. The shipping companies are losing money. If we ask them to contribute to rebuilding the lighthouse, they'll benefit too. We could also ask the government for help. This is about safety, about saving lives, I explained. Mr. Peterson was quiet for a long moment. He looked at me carefully, thinking. You have your father's intelligence and courage, I can see that. But Emma, even if we could raise the money, the process takes years. Approvals, planning, construction. What will you do in the meantime? Where will you live? He asked. I'll find a way to survive. I'll work any job. I'll sleep anywhere. But please, give me a chance. Don't let my father's lighthouse disappear forever. Don't let his work mean nothing, I pleaded. Mr. Peterson sighed deeply. I'll tell you what. I can't promise anything about the lighthouse. But I can give you a temporary job. We need someone to clean and maintain the harbor master's office and the smaller signal tower near your village. It doesn't pay much, $50 a week, but it includes a small room where you can live. Would you accept that? $50 a week. It wasn't much, but it was something. A job. A home. A chance. Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Peterson, I said, tears of gratitude running down my face. Don't thank me yet. The work is hard. You'll be cleaning, painting, carrying heavy equipment. Can you handle that? He asked. I can handle anything, sir. I promise I won't disappoint you, I said with determination. We'll see. Start next Monday. And Emma? I'll think about your lighthouse proposal. I can't promise anything, but I'll think about it, he said. As I walked back to the village, I felt hope for the first time since my father died. I had a job. I had a place to live. And maybe, just maybe, I could make my impossible dream come true. McLeod na kam karab tv's delete karenjai started my new job the following Monday. Mr. Peterson was right. The work was hard. Every day I cleaned 4 offices, washed all the windows, swept and mopped the floors, and maintained the small signal tower. The signal tower was 3 miles from the main office. I had to walk there every afternoon to make sure all the equipment was working properly. I climbed the narrow stairs to the top and checked the signal lights that warned ships about dangerous rocks near the shore. My hands became rough from work. My body ached every night. But I didn't complain. I was surviving. I was independent. The small room they gave me was tiny, just big enough for a bed and a small table, but it was mine. Every night, I fell asleep exhausted but satisfied. On weekends, I worked on my lighthouse plan. I wrote letters to shipping companies, explaining why rebuilding the lighthouse was important. I wrote to government officials. I wrote to newspapers. Most people ignored my letters. Some wrote back saying it was impossible. But a few, just a few, said they would think about it. 3 months passed. I saved every penny I earned. I had $200 saved. Not nearly enough for a lighthouse, but it was a start. One evening, as I was closing the signal tower, I saw a ship in trouble. The ship was too close to the dangerous rocks. The captain couldn't see them because it was getting dark and foggy. I immediately lit all the signal lights and turned them to maximum brightness. I used the signal flags to warn the ship. Red flag, danger. Change direction. I waved the flags frantically, praying the captain would see them. For 10 terrible minutes, I thought the ship would crash. But then, at the last moment, the ship turned. It moved away from the rocks and into safe water. I sat down, shaking with relief. I had saved that ship. I had saved those people's lives. The next day, the ship's captain came to the harbor master's office. He asked to meet the person who had signaled his ship. When he found out it was me, a 16-year-old girl, he was amazed. "You saved my ship and my crew. 15 men are alive because of you," he said. "What's your name?" "Emma Thompson, sir," I replied. "Well, Emma Thompson, you're a hero. What can I do to thank you?" he asked. "Actually, sir, there is something," I said nervously. Then I told him about my plan to rebuild the lighthouse. The captain listened carefully. When I finished, he smiled. "I own the Pacific Shipping Company. I have 12 ships. We've lost 2 ships near this coast since your lighthouse fell. Rebuilding that lighthouse would save us millions of dollars in the long run. I'll contribute $10,000 to your project. And I'll convince other shipping companies to help too," he said. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. $10,000. It was really happening. News about the ship captain's donation spread quickly. Newspapers wrote stories about the brave teenage girl who wants to rebuild her father's lighthouse. More people wanted to help. Another shipping company donated $5,000. A wealthy businessman who had loved lighthouses donated $8,000. The local community held fundraising events and collected $3,000 more. In 6 months, we had $31,000. We were getting close. But there were still problems. Some officials didn't want to give permission for the lighthouse. "It's too expensive to maintain," they said. "Modern ships have GPS. They don't need lighthouses anymore." I fought back. I wrote more letters. I spoke at community meetings. I explained that technology can fail, but a lighthouse never lies. It's always there, always reliable, always guiding people home. My father believed that lighthouses represent hope, I said at one meeting. In our darkest moments, we need to see that light. We need to know that someone cares, someone is watching, someone is guiding us home. That's what a lighthouse does. It's not just about ships, it's about hope. My speech was printed in the newspaper. More people read it. More people donated. Finally, after 8 months of fighting, we had the money, $53,000. And we had the permission. The lighthouse would be rebuilt. On the day construction started, the whole village came to watch. Mr. Peterson gave a speech. "This lighthouse exists because one girl refused to give up. Emma Thompson had nothing, no money, no family, no support. But she had courage and determination. She showed us that age doesn't matter. Gender doesn't matter. What matters is the strength of your spirit and the size of your dreams. Emma, your father would be incredibly proud of you," he said. Everyone clapped. I cried tears of joy. The construction took 6 months. I visited the site every single day. I watched the lighthouse grow, stone by stone, higher and higher, reaching toward the sky. Finally, one beautiful spring evening, the lighthouse was finished. It stood tall and proud, exactly where the old one had been. But this one was stronger. This one would survive any storm. That night, we held a lighting ceremony. Hundreds of people came. The mayor was there. The shipping company captains were there. All my friends from the village were there. At exactly 8 o'clock, I climbed the stairs to the top of the lighthouse. Mr. Peterson was with me. "Emma, you've earned this honor. You should be the one to light the lamp for the first time," he said. With shaking hands, I lit the lamp. The bright light flooded out across the dark ocean, strong and steady. Down below, people cheered and clapped. I looked out at the ocean, at the light spreading across the water, and I felt my father's presence. "We did it, Papa. The light is shining again. People are safe again. Your work continues," I whispered. After the lighthouse was completed, Mr. Peterson called me to his office. "Emma, the Harbor Masters Council has made a decision. You've proven your knowledge, your dedication, and your capability. We're offering you the position of lighthouse keeper at Sunset Point. You'll be the youngest lighthouse keeper in history, and the first woman. The salary is $800 per month, and you'll live in the keeper's house. Do you accept?" he asked formally. "Yes. Yes, I accept," I said, hardly believing it was real. At 17 years old, I became the lighthouse keeper of Sunset Point. The government built a new keeper's house for me. A small but comfortable cottage right next to the lighthouse. It had a kitchen, a living room, a bedroom, and even a small library where I could read. Every evening at sunset, I climbed the lighthouse stairs and lit the lamp. Every morning at sunrise, I turned it off. In between, I maintained the equipment, kept records of passing ships, and watched the weather. It wasn't an easy life. I was often alone. The work was repetitive. The winters were cold and harsh. During storms, I couldn't leave the lighthouse for days. But I was happy. I had a purpose. I was helping people. I was continuing my father's work. Ship's captains began to know me. When they passed Sunset Point, they would signal hello. Sometimes they brought me supplies or letters from the mainland. The village people, who had once pitied me as a poor orphan, now respected me as the lighthouse keeper who had saved their coast. But the best thing was what happened one year after the lighthouse was rebuilt. A young sailor named James came to visit the lighthouse. His ship had been the one I saved with the signal flags 2 years before. "I've wanted to meet you again and properly thank you," he said. "You saved my life that night." James started visiting regularly when his ship came to port. We became friends. He told me stories about his travels to distant countries. I told him about my life at the lighthouse. Over time, friendship became something more. We fell in love. 2 years later, James proposed to me at the top of the lighthouse, right next to the lamp. "Emma, you're the light in my life. Will you marry me?" he asked. "Yes," I said, crying happy tears. We got married in the village church. Mr. Peterson walked me down the aisle, like a father would. The whole village came to celebrate. James left his sailing job and became my assistant lighthouse keeper. Together, we took care of the lighthouse and the coast. 5 years have passed since that terrible storm night. I am 21 years old now. James and I have a beautiful baby daughter. We named her Grace, which means blessing. Every evening, our family climbs the lighthouse together. While James lights the lamp, I hold Grace and tell her stories about her grandfather, the brave lighthouse keeper who gave his life to save others. One day, Grace, you'll understand what this lighthouse means. It's not just a building. It's a symbol. When life becomes dark and stormy, we must be the light for others. We must guide them to safety. That's what your grandfather taught me. And that's what I'm teaching you. I tell her. The lighthouse still stands strong, guiding ships through the darkness every single night. But it's also become something more. It's become a symbol of hope for the whole region. People come from far away just to see the lighthouse that a teenage girl built. They want to hear the story. They want to be inspired. I welcome them all. I tell them my story, not to boast but to teach them a lesson. When I was 16, I lost everything. I tell them. I had no family, no money, no home, no future. I could have given up. Many people would have. But I remembered my father's words. Even in the darkest night, there is light. So I decided to be that light. I decided to fight for my dream, no matter how impossible it seemed. Was it easy? Visitors ask. No. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. People doubted me. They said I was too young, too inexperienced, too female. They said my dream was impossible. There were days I wanted to quit. Days I cried myself to sleep. Days I didn't know if I would survive. I answer honestly. So how did you do it? They ask. I took one small step at a time. I found one small job. I saved $1. I wrote one letter. I convinced one person. Then another. Then another. Small steps became big progress. Impossible became possible. And after 3 years of fighting, the lighthouse was rebuilt. What's the most important lesson you learned? They ask. I think carefully before answering. I learned that your circumstances don't define you. Yes, I was an orphan with no money and no support. But I had something more powerful than money. I had determination. I had a dream. I had love for my father's memory and for the people I wanted to help. That was enough. I also learned that you're never really alone. When you fight for something good, people will help you. Mr. Peterson gave me a job when I was desperate. The ship captain donated money. The community supported me. Good people want to help good causes. But you have to take the first step. You have to show them you're serious. Most importantly, I learned that pain and loss can become your power. Losing my father was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But that loss gave me purpose. It made me strong. It taught me what really matters in life. Now I use my pain to help others. That's how we turn tragedy into triumph. Many visitors leave in tears, inspired to chase their own impossible dreams. Last month, something wonderful happened. The government created a new scholarship program called the Emma Thompson Lighthouse Scholarship. It gives money to young people, especially girls, who want to pursue careers in maritime service, engineering, or any field related to helping others. Your story has inspired thousands of young people, the governor said at the ceremony. You showed them that youth is not weakness. Being female is not a disadvantage. Having no money is not the end. What matters is courage, determination, and love. This scholarship will help other young people follow your example. I couldn't speak. I just cried and cried. My father's death, my struggle, my impossible dream, it had all led to this. Now I could help hundreds of other young people who were facing their own impossible challenges. Last week, a 14-year-old girl came to visit the lighthouse. Her name was Sophie. Her parents had died in a car accident, and she was living with foster parents who didn't treat her well. Emma, I read about you, Sophie said shyly. You lost your father when you were 16. You had nothing. But you survived. You succeeded. I'm only 14. My parents are gone. I feel so lost and hopeless. How did you do it? How did you stay strong? I sat down with Sophie and held her hands. Sophie, I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be hard. There will be days you want to give up. Days you cry yourself to sleep. Days you feel completely alone. But you're stronger than you think. We all are. We discover our strength only when we're forced to use it, I said. I'm scared, she whispered. That's okay. I was scared too. Being scared doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But don't let fear stop you. Feel the fear, and do it anyway. Take one small step. Then another. Then another. Before you know it, you'll look back and realize how far you've traveled. I encouraged her. What if I fail? She asked. Then you try again. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. I failed many times. People rejected my letters. Officials said no. But I kept trying. Eventually someone said yes. Then another. Then another. You only need one yes to change your life, I explained. What should I do first? Sophie asked. Find one thing you're good at. One small skill. Then use that skill to help yourself. Get a small job. Earn a little money. Build from there. And always, always keep learning. Education is the key that opens every door. I educated myself about lighthouses. That knowledge saved me. What do you love? What are you good at? I asked. I love drawing and painting, Sophie said quietly. Then that's your lighthouse. Learn everything about art. Practice every day. Maybe you can sell your art. Maybe you can teach art classes to children. Maybe you'll become a famous artist one day. Your talent is your power. Use it, I said. Sophie hugged me tight. Thank you, Emma. You've given me hope. As I watched Sophie leave, walking taller and stronger than when she arrived, I understood something profound. This was why I had survived. This was why I had fought so hard. Not just to save myself, but to become a light for others who were lost in darkness. My father was right. We must be the light for others. Today is a special day. It's the 10th anniversary of my father's death. It's also the 10th anniversary of the storm that changed my life forever. At sunset, the whole village gathers at the lighthouse for a memorial ceremony. James stands beside me holding Grace, who is now 5 years old. My baby son, Thomas, named after my father, sleeps peacefully in my arms. The mayor gives a speech. 10 years ago, we lost Thomas Thompson, one of the finest men this village has ever known. But we gained Emma Thompson, who showed us that his spirit lives on. Emma took her pain and turned it into purpose. She took her loss and turned it into legacy. She took an impossible dream and made it reality. Today, ships safely navigate these waters because of her. Young people around the country find hope and inspiration because of her story. This lighthouse stands as a monument not just to maritime safety, but to the human spirit. When it's my turn to speak, I climb to the top of the lighthouse with my family. From there, I can see the whole village, the ocean, and the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant colors. 10 years ago tonight, I watched my father die. I begin. I lost everything. I was 16, alone and terrified. If someone had told me then that I would be standing here today, married to a wonderful man, mother of 2 beautiful children, keeper of this lighthouse, inspiration to thousands, I wouldn't have believed it. The journey from that broken girl to this woman seemed impossible. But here's what I learned. Nothing is impossible when you have love, courage, and determination. Nothing is impossible when you refuse to give up. Nothing is impossible when you turn your pain into power and your loss into legacy. My father taught me that we must be a light for others. For 10 years, this lighthouse has been a light for ships. But I hope that my story has been a light for people. A light showing that no matter how dark your night is, there is always hope. No matter how lost you feel, there is always a way forward. No matter how alone you think you are, there are people who will help you if you just ask. To everyone listening, if you're facing an impossible situation, remember this lighthouse. Remember that a teenage girl with nothing built it. Remember that small steps lead to great journeys. Remember that your circumstances don't define you. Your choices do. Remember that you are stronger than you know. And to my father, wherever you are, your light never died. It lives on in me, in this lighthouse, in everyone our story has touched. You guided ships to safety for 30 years. Now you're guiding people to hope for eternity. Thank you, Papa. I love you. And I promise, this light will never go out. As I finish speaking, I light the lighthouse lamp. The powerful beam shoots out across the darkening ocean, bright and steady and eternal. Below, people cheer and cry. Ships in the harbor blow their horns in salute. Church bells ring across the village. James puts his arm around me. Grace tugs on my dress. Mama, why are people crying? They're crying because they're happy, sweetheart. They're crying because they remember that even in the darkest night, there is light. And we must be that light for each other, I explain. Like the lighthouse? She asks. Yes, exactly like the lighthouse, I say, smiling. As the sun sets completely and night falls, the lighthouse beam sweeps across the ocean, steady and strong, guiding travelers home. And I understand, finally and completely, what my father meant all those years ago. We are all lighthouses. In this dark and stormy world, each of us can choose to be a light for others. Each of us can guide someone who is lost. Each of us can give hope to someone in despair. That is the true meaning of life. That is the true purpose of existence. To love, to serve, to help, to guide, to be a light. My father's lighthouse may have fallen in that storm 10 years ago, but the light never died. It just moved into my heart. And from there, it spreads to everyone our story touches. That light will never die. As long as people remember this story, as long as they find hope in it, as long as they use it to inspire their own impossible dreams, the light will continue. Generation after generation. Forever. Thought balloon, what lesson touched your heart the most? Share in the comments below. Glowing star, if Emma could turn her impossible dream into reality, what's your impossible dream? Tell us. Red heart, who is the lighthouse in your life? The person who guides you through dark times. Now that you've seen the whole story, we would really appreciate it if you rate it from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your thoughts help us improve and make sure we bring you the kind of stories you truly enjoy.